The shocking truth about Lucifer's location revealed at midnight what the Bible hiddenly says. The clock struck 12, and an eerie chill swept through the small town of Millstone. The moon hung low, casting an unnatural glow, bathing the streets in shadows that seemed to dance with a life of their own. Folks whispered stories as the wind howled like a restless spirit, conjuring an age-old fear that gripped their hearts. Was this the night the truth would finally reveal itself? That strange feeling in the air wasn't just a draft. It was as if the very fabric of the world was tearing apart, a portal between heaven and hell right here, beneath the soil they walked upon. You could almost hear the collective breaths of those who dared to peek into the darkness. Streets devoid of light felt like a trap, fingers curled tightly around flashlights like lifelines. Ghostly figures flitted through the corners of their eyes. Was it imagination or reality? A thrill of panic surged through the onlookers, their faces ghostly pale under the moonlight. But the wildest tales swirled around a book hidden deep in the dusty old church, an ancient Bible, promising secrets of the damned. It was said that scribbled in the margins were clues about Lucifer, marking his restless location. The librarian had shown a particular interest in that text, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the brittle pages. The town had dismissed her at first, but tonight, as thunder rumbled ominously, her warnings rang sharper against the backdrop of looming clouds. Some citizens gathered in hushed circles, eyes wide with fear and fascination. "Did you hear about old Mrs. Hargrove?" one whispered. "They say she spoke with him just last week." The murmurs grew, feeding an insatiable hunger for the thrillingly scandalous. It was the talk of the town, a tantalizing blend of horror and enthrallment. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the tension heightened, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the night, freezing the crowd in place. Hearts raced, and gasps filled the air as they turned towards the church. Was it the warning of the past coming back to haunt them? Or something else entirely? Fear loomed over Millstone like a storm cloud ready to burst. The church doors creaked open, revealing a figure hooded in darkness, stepping into the light. What was hidden beneath? Was it the truth, or was it a harbinger of doom? With every watchful gaze locked onto that silhouette, the line between madness and revelation blurred, and the night held its breath, just waiting for the next shock to drop. What lay ahead was shrouded in mystery, and every heartbeat echoed the looming question: what did Lucifer truly want? The hooded figure stepped into the flickering light, and the crowd collectively held its breath. An unsettling silence descended, a chilling pause that wrapped itself around them like a fog. Was it fear paralyzing them, or something deeper? Gasps sliced through the tension as a hand emerged from beneath the cloak, trembling yet purposeful, revealing a parchment aged by time. "Tales and truth collide tonight, my friends," a haunting voice boomed, reverberating through the stillness. It was like frozen lightning, crackling in the air, making every hair stand on end. The villagers squirmed, exchanging uneasy glances, half expecting the figure to dissolve into shadows. Who was this? A messenger? Or a harbinger of doom? As the figure leaned closer, the moon cast light on the parchment, revealing curious inscriptions, spirals of ancient script mixed with symbols neither of the townsfolk had ever seen. The key to unraveling the Cathedral of Souls lies in the darkness, where the serpent coils, the figure continued, words saturated with urgency. Mrs. Hargrove, standing near the edge of the crowd, felt her knees weaken. The predictions whispered by the town for weeks danced in her mind. She had stood in front of that ancient Bible, her fingers brushing over the cryptic notes that tethered her to a disturbing reality. "What does it mean?" she dared to ask, her voice barely above a whisper, though it tremored with urgency. The figure turned toward her, shadows shifting. "It means deception runs deep, and the devil is here. The whisper of the unknown sent chills through everyone present. Gasps filled the air, sounding like the echo of the night itself. They all felt it. Some, like Mrs. Hargrove, were terrified, and others were intrigued, energy crackling at the prospect of a hidden truth. Was it treachery or salvation that awaited them? 3 nights past the new moon, evil will rush forth from the forgotten corners of this town. Only those brave enough can stand against it. The hooded figure seemed to momentarily float above the ground, their voice rising, sweeping the crowd into a frenzy of anticipation and dread. "What do we do?" a man shouted, breaking the spell that held everyone captive. "Just stand here and wait for hell to come?" The figure chuckled darkly, the sound reverberating like hollow thunder. "You'll find the answer in the heart of darkness, but be warned. The price of knowledge is steep." Then, without warning, the figure spun, retreating back to the shadows of the church. The crowd, torn between fear and a palpable urge for answers, was left gasping, hoping the figure's words would have their meaning filtering through the frenzy of their thoughts. "Gather at the church tomorrow at dusk," someone called, a tremor of determination rising in their voice. "We will uncover the truth." But in the depths of the night, as whispers of urgency and resolve buzzed around, a flicker of self-doubt crept into the hearts of many. What if they couldn't withstand the darkness threatening to choke their town? Questions weighed heavily in the air, thick and tangible, saturating their breaths. As the hours passed, Millstone lay still under the watchful eye of the full moon, and the feeling of tension felt sharper than ever. The clock inched closer to dawn, and the townsfolk returned home marked by a singular thought: what if this was the night they unwittingly played into Lucifer's hands? And so the question loomed over them, heavy and suffocating: what lurked in the heart of darkness waiting for them to unlock the secrets they'd been warned to avoid? The church bells echoed through the darkened streets of Millstone, their clang ringing out like a warning. The townsfolk shuffled hesitantly toward the gathering, a parade of unease cropped in layers of jackets and muffled whispers. Every step felt heavier than the last, dragging them deeper into the encroaching dread. As dusk fell, the cemetery loomed close, casting shadows that twisted and curled along the ground. Mrs. Hargrove felt a shiver ripple down her spine, as if the graves themselves were stirring to listen. Each rustle of leaves felt like a voice, the spirit of the past encouraging her. "What's buried here?" she murmured. Families trickled into the churchyard, eyes darting nervously. What truth would they unveil? Each person bore the weight of expectation mixed with fear. Candles flickered to life, their flames flickering like spirits seeking guidance. A sudden gust snuffed a few before they could even ignite fully. "Gather, gather!" The voice of Jonathan, the town's elder, pierced the air. His presence steadied the crowd, though shadows clung to him. "The hour is upon us. We cannot let fear guide us. We face this together." But murmurs erupted again. "What if it's too late?" someone whispered, and the echo of doubt crept back into the group. Mrs. Hargrove clutched her late husband's worn Bible tightly, fingers digging into the leather spine as her heart raced. She took a deep breath, longing for clarity. "We have to remember the heart of the words in these pages," she said, though her voice trembled. "There are only hope against whatever darkness waits for us." Just then, a loud crash shattered the uneasy whispering. A heavy wooden door swung open. The hooded figure reemerged, but now with an aura of dominance that made the ground quake. The crowd gasped collectively, part awe, part fright. "You stand at the crossroad of salvation and despair," the figure proclaimed, lifting the parchment high. "But only through communion can you pierce the veil." The townsfolk leaned in, captivated as the figure continued, "The serpent coils in the shadows of the old oak. Heed my warning and bind your spirits together." An abrupt hush fell over the crowd, thick and heavy, as eyes searched for understanding. "There's an oak tree at the edge of the forest," a voice broke the silence, uncertain but insistent. "It's where we gather for the harvest festival." "Yes," Mrs. Hargrove cried, realization striking her. "That's where the darkness beckons." "But why there?" The figure smiled slowly, a malevolent grin hidden in darkness. "Only there will the truth awaken. The power buried must be unleashed. The key lies within." Nervous energy buzzed like 1,000 buzzing wings. Questions surged among the crowd, but fear kept their tongues at bay. What power had they denied themselves? Could they bear the truth, no matter how damning? Tonight, you must choose, the figure commanded. Will you confront what hides in the dark and bring light to this cursed town, or remain shackled to your ignorance? A future stretched before them, fraught with potential horror or redemption. Tension hummed in the electric air. Maybe the answers framed with darkness didn't mean death. Perhaps they held the hope to defeat it. Panic washed across Mrs. Hargrove's face, but determination fought back. This was the moment a choice lay at their feet like a stone waiting to unearth its secrets. "Let us go to the oak," she shouted. Together. As the crowd began to move, the hooded figure remained behind, their gaze fixed on the fleeing townsfolk. A low chuckle slipped from their lips, chilling the air. Fools, the unwinding has just begun. What horrors awaited in the shadows of the ancient oak? Would they be brave enough to face what lurked there? The urgency to find out clawed at their insides as they raced toward the truth, unaware of the peril that cloaked their path. A sinister force lingered close behind, waiting for its moment to strike. The path to the old oak twisted through the woods like a serpent, branches reaching out with gnarled fingers. The cold air wrapped around the townsfolk, their breath escaping in wispy clouds. Shadows leaped and danced, teasing at the edges of their vision. Hearts raced, and a palpable fear soaked the ground beneath their feet. Mrs. Hargrove and the townspeople pressed onward, a mix of defiance and dread swirling within them. Each step felt like a descent into a deeper abyss. "What will we find?" A whisper broke through the silence, trembling with apprehension. "Strength," she replied, though the uncertainty glinted in her eyes. As they neared the oak, its massive trunk stood stark against the darkening sky, like an ancient sentinel looming over forgotten secrets. A rustling sound, a whispering, almost a song, rose from the ground. It felt impossible, yet it echoed a chill through Mrs. Hargrove's bones. "Do you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely more than a breath. "Someone's coming," one of the younger men in the group, Jake, exclaimed, trying to peer through the deepening shadows. Mrs. Hargrove shot him a look. "We can't turn back now." Standing before the oak, the townsfolk formed a loose circle. The low rumble of the earth seemed to shift, resonating deep within their chests. The hooded figure had hinted at power, and the promise tinged the air with hope and fear. "Gather your courage," Jonathan said, surprisingly steady. "We must hold hands and join our spirits, or the darkness may swallow us whole." Mrs. Hargrove grasped Jonathan's hand, then reached out to her neighbor, who echoed her resolve. One by one, their hands connected around the tree's ancient roots. The gathering tightened as fear turned to determination. With a collective breath, they murmured the words of a long-forgotten ritual, beckoning the spirits intertwined with the oak and drawing forth the energy buried beneath. Yet, with each word, the ground shuddered, and the oak shivered in return. Suddenly, a piercing howl echoed through the woods, rattling the branches. Shadows twisted viciously across the ground, curling toward the townsfolk like grasping fingers. Panic erupted as they stumbled back, but their hands remained locked. "What have we done?" someone cried, terror running thick in their voice. "It's the darkness," Jake shouted, trying to pull free, but the connections only tightened like a vice. "No! We must stand firm." Mrs. Hargrove's voice rose above the chaos. "We can't break the circle. Remember the message. It told us we would confront this together." The howling intensified, and the air grew thick and oppressive. They could feel the malevolence pressing down around them, the weight of ancient curses digging into their souls. Shadows stretched closer, thickening as if welcoming something dark and potent. The hooded figure's laugh echoed in the distance, reverberating off the tree's bark. "You think understanding grants power? It awakens the very beast you fear. Do you dare face the truth, or will you allow it to drag you into the abyss?" A visible force swept around them, turning air to ice. Mrs. Hargrove's chest tightened, despair sinking in. "What does it mean?" she gasped. "What truth are we meant to find?" Then, amidst the chaos, a voice rose, clear as a bell, piercing the fog, the heart of the town dwells here. The binder lies not in the oak, but within each of us. Suddenly, light burst from the linking hands, a brilliant glow pushing back the shadows. The townsfolk gasped as raw energy pulsed. They felt the ancient power igniting, aligning with their own fear and hope. Would they stand united against the darkness that threatened them? With their spirits interwoven, would they unearth a truth worth facing, or would the truth itself devour them whole? As the glow flared brighter, a horrendous scream echoed from the depths of the woods, shaking the very foundation of their courage. Something was awakening, and they had only begun to tap into the peril ahead. What other secrets did the old oak hold? Would their unity extinguish the fear, or would it unleash a greater terror? The light enveloped them, swirling like a tempest. The screams echoed again, this time accompanied by a seismic roar that shook the very roots of the old oak. The earth trembled beneath their feet, a deep, resonant pulse that resonated in their bones. Each thump of the ground felt like a reminder, they had trespassed far into the unknown. "Hold on!" Mrs. Hargrove cried out, squeezing Jonathan's hand tighter. "We can't give in to fear!" But doubt washed over the group like a tide. The shadows writhed, creeping closer, as if drawn to their fears. Whispers floated through the air, conspiratorial and taunting. "You are but children playing with forces far beyond you," they seemed to say. Jake could no longer contain himself. "What have we awakened?" he shouted, desperation on his face. "What if we're in over our heads?" "Stay together," Mrs. Hargrove urged, her own heart racing as the energy thrummed around them. It pulsed like a heartbeat, alive and unyielding. Each person, standing shoulder to shoulder, could feel the light within them clash against the encroaching dark. They were a fragile beacon in the storm. Suddenly, the ground beneath them split open, a jagged rift revealing a darkness deeper than night. A frigid wind poured from the fissure, and a figure emerged, a creature draped in shadows, its form shifting like smoke. It hovered above the ground, claws extended, eyes gleaming like twin pools of oil. "Foolish mortals," it hissed, words slithering through the gathered townsfolk. "You know not the power you play with. This world is a prison for you and me." Gasps erupted as the collective horror of the townsfolk reached its peak. The voice was impossibly familiar, echoing in Mrs. Hargrove's mind like a haunting refrain. Her lips parted. You're the one from the legends. The creature that binds them." "Yes," it mocked, unfurling its form in grotesque manners. "I am every fear you hide and every truth you wish to bury. You've summoned me. Now will you embrace your fate or flee into the darkness?" As the creature spoke, a rush of memories assaulted the townsfolk. Hopes, dreams, and last moments replaying in vibrant colors. Mrs. Hargrove's chest tightened. They remembered joy but were relentlessly dragged back to fear. What truth did they bury deep within? "Look within," the voice commanded, sudden and striking. "Face the shadows you hide from each other. Only then can you defeat what I am." The glow from their hands flickered as chaos surged among them. Spouses turned to one another, eyes wide with unspoken truths. Jake's jaw clenched as he looked at Sarah, the girl he had wanted to confess everything to, yet never had. "Now is not the time for secrets," he yelled, desperation trembling in his voice. "We need each other." The townsfolk looked at each other, barrier walls crumbling. One by one, stories emerged, a broken promise here, a hidden fear there. The creature's grin widened, swirling shadows shifting as if drinking in their revelations. "Yes, let it out. It only strengthens me." But Mrs. Hargrove grasped Jonathan's hand once more, lifting her chin defiantly. "Our truth is our power," she shouted. "Fear divides us, but our unity can dismantle the darkness." A flicker of doubt passed over the creature's face, and for a moment, uncertainty glimmered in its eyes. It staggered back, shadows recoiling slightly as the light around the circle grew stronger. The townsfolk tightened their grip, their hearts beating in rhythm. "Let it go," Mrs. Hargrove commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. But another scream split the air, louder and more visceral than before. A shriek of pure despair, echoing from the void beneath them. Whatever lay waiting down there, It was not done with them yet. As the ground shook again, a terrible realization dawned. "We're not alone," Jonathan hissed, terror knitting his brows. What else lurked in the depths? What had they truly summoned? As the shadows writhed and light battled for dominance, fear twisted in their bellies. They had unearthed something ancient, and the question hung heavy in the air: could they fend off the darkness together, or would they become the next sacrifice to those long-hidden secrets? The ground rumbled violently, sending a wave of fear rippling through the gathered townsfolk. The creature loomed, its form an ever-shifting mass of darkness, almost seeming to pulse like a heartbeat with each terrified gasp. Mrs. Hargrove felt her heart waver. This was no simple nightmare, it was a manifestation of their collective dread. With every hidden truth laid bare, the air around them thickened. Broken promises, unspoken feelings, and the weight of their regrets hung in the atmosphere like a storm cloud. "What do you want from us?" Jake shouted, his voice trembling but defiant. "Do you think you can erase your weaknesses with mere words?" The creature hissed, mocking their desperate efforts. "I am the void of every doubt, the abyss of your failures. Breathe deep, mortals. Let the shadows guide you." Jonathan, feeling the panic rise in his throat, caught Mrs. Hargrove's intense gaze. "We have to dig deeper," he urged, his voice steadying in a crescendo of courage. "What are we truly afraid of?" The shadowed form sneered, and the murmurs of uncertainty transformed into a haunting chorus around them. Townsfolk exchanged looks filled with newfound understanding and dread. A woman in the back took a shaky breath, stepping forward. "This isn't just about the creature," she called out. "It's the loss I feel about my son. It's been years since we spoke." "Let it out," the creature urged, eyes glimmering. "Your sorrow feeds me." "No!" Mrs. Hargrove shouted. "Our unity takes away your power." She stepped into the light, urging others to follow. "We must confront our fears together." As if in defiance, Jonathan shouted out, "I'm afraid I'm not enough. I can't save my family, I can't even protect my friends from this darkness." His voice cracked, but the weight of his confession echoed into the void, making the ground tremble again. The shadows swirled and thickened, a tangible response to their shared vulnerability. "What you admit can only make you weaker," the creature taunted, and yet, it shivered ever so slightly as if tasting their fears anew. But the light began to pulse brighter, fueled by shared emotion, sadness mixed with resilience. "No more!" Sarah wailed, stepping forward too. "We can face this together. I lost my father to despair, but I will not bury my truth." The crowd surged, one by one, offering their truths like stones in a slingshot, preparing to strike back against the looming shadow. The collective confession spiraled vibrantly, a rising cacophony that drowned out the creature's sneering voice. Suddenly, the creature, writhing under the weight of their shared strength, lost its grip. Shadows flickered and shrank back, revealing hints of light trying to seep through. "You think you can defeat me? I am darkness," it screamed, almost sounding desperate now. But fear twisted into something else: unity, courage, and defiance. "We know what you are," Mrs. Hargrove yelled, her voice raw but determined. "And we are not afraid anymore." As the townsfolk joined hands, the brightness around them surged, illuminating the darkness in blinding flares. The creature let out a howl that echoed into the abyss, a sound that hinted at the depth of despair. Then, just when hope felt tangible, a new voice resonated from deep within the rift. It was cold, grating, and filled with malice. "You may banish me today, but others will come. I will not be the last." The air shifted, it tasted like dread and uncertainty. The ground quaked violently again, but this time, it wasn't just fear that gripped their hearts. It was the foreboding sense that their fight was far from over. As the shadows surged and blasted into chaos, Mrs. Hargrove locked eyes with Jonathan. "What more is waiting in the dark?" she whispered, and with that question hanging in the air like an unfinished sentence, the ground split wider, and the true extent of their battle began to unfold. The earth shivered beneath their feet, the crevasse sending sharp echoes into the panicking crowd. It was like a vast mouth opening to swallow them whole, teeth of jagged stones lining its edges. The townsfolk stumbled backward, some falling to their knees as if the ground itself had turned traitor. "Stay together!" Mrs. Hargrove shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. The flickering light dimmed briefly, but as if responding to her urgency, the townsfolk grasped each other's hands tighter, forming a chain of trembling resolve. "Look!" Jonathan pointed towards the rift, where a spectral figure began to take shape amidst the shadows. It was taller than the creature, more defined, with eyes that blazed like coals. An ominous laughter rolled from its mouth, rich with power and malice. "Fools! You think mere confessions can rid you of your darkness?" It boomed. "This isn't just about the darkness. It's about us," Jake shouted defiantly, despite the way his heart raced. "We'll own our truths, every single one. And you won't stop us!" The figure paused, momentarily taken aback by their unity. "Ah, but how well do you know your own truths?" it asked, a sly grin spreading across its shadowy face. It stepped closer, the air becoming thick with dread. "What buried secrets weigh heaviest on your hearts?" A silence fell, a heavy, suffocating blanket, as fear carved into the silence. Eyes darted around, faces went pale. Behind the confidence of their earlier words was an edge of uncertainty. How sure were they of their own truths? "Don't listen," Mrs. Hargrove urged, her voice rising. "We cannot let it divide us. Speak your truth." Jonathan swallowed hard. The memory of his father loomed in the back of his mind, a specter that always felt just out of reach. "My father, he took his life and I never said goodbye," he muttered, tears forming as the regret clawed at him. "I've been living with that weight, feeling like it was my fault." As the confession spilled forth, the ground shuddered along with the townspeople, each confession an echo in the abyss. "I abandoned my dreams for security," a man cried, his voice cracking. "I never told my sister I love her. Now she might never come home." A woman screamed, her voice full of anguish. With each emergence of truth, light flickered brighter, pushing back the encroaching darkness. Yet, the figure only laughed, a sound that sent chills through the gathered souls. "Such delightful tidbits! But your fears are like a buffet to me. I will grow stronger with every tear you shed." "No!" Sarah yelled, her eyes wild with determination. "You don't get to feed off us. This is our moment." Suddenly, as if drawn by a force invisible to the naked eye, the shadows began to converge and roil, creating whirlpools of darkness that threatened to envelope the townsfolk. Their sanctuary felt fragile, the walls of unity flickering as panic surged anew. "Remember what binds us," Jake shouted, his voice breaking through the din. "The past doesn't own us if we refuse to be its prisoners." In that moment, something shifted. A flicker of strength ignited in their hearts. One by one, they began shouting their truths, a chorus that resonated through the rift. It built upon itself, spiraling into a raging storm of defiance against the monstrous figure. But as the creature writhed, a sinister whisper curled through the air, echoing relentlessly, "You will never conquer your darkness. I am with you, always." The ground trembled violently as the split widened, swallowing fragments of dirt and stone. And then, with one last, earth-shaking roar, the apparition thrashed against the light, visibly splintering yet hardening at the center, preparing for a counterattack. A jolt of trepidation surged through Mrs. Hargrove. "What if it knows something we don't?" she breathed, clutching Jonathan's arm as anxiety bubbled within her. And just before everything could spiral into unending chaos, the ground quieted briefly, a silence that felt ominous. Eyes turned to the rift, wide and afraid, as they readied themselves for the next horror that could erupt from the abyss. What more lay beneath their fears? The answer loomed over them, hidden in the chilling shadows. "Are you prepared to face it?" The darkness taunted, lingering just under the edge of their awareness, waiting for the moment they let their guard down. A deep rumble emanated from the heart of the rift, sending tremors through the ground and into the very bones of the townsfolk. They stood frozen, eyes locked onto the dark chasm, as the creature continued to taunt them, its laughter reverberating around them like a death knell. "Do you feel it? The weight of your own lies?" It's suffocating, isn't it? The figure's voice slithered through the air, sinking into their minds. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, a reminder that time was slipping away, and their unity was hanging by a thread. Together. We need to stay together, Mrs. Hargrove shouted, desperation lining her voice. She wouldn't let fear tear them apart. Yet, as her eyes swept over the crowd, doubt flickered through her heart. Would they falter now, when the stakes were this high? The shadows pulsed, drawing closer, curling around their ankles. Jake, emboldened but terrified, stepped forward, raising his chin defiantly. You think you can intimidate us with your darkness? You think we're weak? He faced the figure, brown eyes blazing with a fire of determination. The creature's grin widened, its eyes narrowing. Weakness will bury you all. Face your shadows and admit the truth, if you dare. The words sank in, twisting like an invisible knife in their stomachs. Sarah shot a glance toward Jonathan, whose face was pale but resolute. What else have you been hiding? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the gathering storm of shadows. But before Jonathan could respond, the whispers began a cacophony of doubt and regret. Personal secrets unfurled in the air around them like wisps of smoke. I ruined my best friend's life, hissed a man at the back. I let my fear dictate my choices. A woman wailed, tears streaking down her face. Each admission seemed to wind around the darkness like a noose, tightening its hold on them. Look! The light is fading! Jonathan shouted, eyes wild with panic as he pointed toward the luminous flickers, now sputtering like dying candles before a tempest. And in that moment, the creature surged forward, coiling its darkness tighter, the shadows breathless with anticipation. There is no escape from your fears. I will feast on them. As the air grew heavy with despair, Jonathan felt a warm pulse seep through him. It was the truth, a heartbeat against the callous darkness. It's not about escaping, he cried, spirit igniting. It's about confronting our failures. With that proclamation, a chain reaction ignited among the townsfolk. Surging forward, they echoed his sentiment. The confessions tumbled forth, words woven with pain but punctuated with a zealous determination. I was scared of being left behind, yelled a stranger, desperation in his voice. Their unity surged as hand in hand, they faced the creeping figures of their regrets. Each confession birthed light, growing and intertwining until it coalesced, pushing against the engulfing shadows. But suddenly, the ground roared anew. The rift shivered with unnatural energy, as though aware of their resolve. Cracks splintered across the earth, deep and hungry. Jonathan stumbled back, feeling the world quaking beneath him, heart pounding like a war drum. Do you understand what you're doing? The figure's voice erupted in rage, shards of darkness lashing out. You think you hold the light? It's only a flicker against my might. Breathless, Jonathan sensed the churning beneath him. Together. We are stronger, he urged. But doubt swirled in their eyes, and shadows danced hungrily at their feet. Just then, piercing through the maelstrom, Mrs. Hargrove sprang forward, voicing a truth of her own. I lost my first love because I was too afraid to say I loved him. Tears glistened in her eyes, sparkling against the shadowy backdrop. An unexpected hush fell over the crowd. A powerful flash illuminated the darkening terrain as Mrs. Hargrove's words cut through the growing noise. The figure recoiled, uncertainty flickering in its molten eyes. But before they could catch their breath, the rift let out a shriek, echoing from the depths of the earth. An eye appeared, swirling with chaos, staring hungrily at the townsfolk. Will you fight or fall? Time is running out. It hissed, the terrifying glare igniting fresh fear in their hearts. Caught between courage and despair, they huddled closer, an electric charge swelling around them. As the ground rumbled and the shadows converged, one thought raced through Jonathan's mind. Were they truly prepared for what lay in wait? Or would the truth itself turn against them? The eye widened, pulsing with an ominous promise. Let us see if you can handle what comes next. The eye gleamed with cosmic fury, and the townsfolk felt its weight bearing down upon them. Jonathan's heart raced as dark tendrils slithered closer, grazing his skin like ice. The creature's laughter echoed through the eerie silence, a twisted melody that sank into every soul gathered there. How much longer can you hide from yourselves? It sneered, the shadows flickering like candle flames in a storm. Jonathan glanced at the faces around him, each twisted in fear and uncertainty. He could see their doubts surfacing, bubbling like a boiling pot ready to overflow. "Focus!" Jake shouted, his voice barely a threat against the creature's snide insistence. "Don't let it win!" Each person on the ground around him trembled, caught between the gnashing teeth of their fears and the flickering hope of their newfound unity. But uncertainty crept in like fog. Sarah clenched Jake's hand, her voice trembling. "What if it's right? What if our confessions only make things worse?" Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, cracking the facade of her bravery. "No!" Jonathan snapped, drawing on every ounce of strength. "We can't let it twist our truths. We have to embrace them." The words rallied under the weight of the swirling darkness, igniting a flicker of resolve among the crowd. Mrs. Hargrove, emboldened by her own moment of vulnerability, raised her voice again. "What we hid in darkness cannot stand in the light." The shadows recoiled momentarily, their grip loosening just enough for the townsfolk to take a breath. One by one, confessions erupted into the tumultuous air, like sparks igniting kindling. "I was unfaithful," yelled an older woman, her voice cracking under the weight of release. "I hurt my kids," shouted another. Each declaration sent threads of light dancing through the gathering shadows, strands of hope woven into the very fabric of their community. But the eye pulsed with rage, and the rift howled, the ground buckling beneath them. Jonathan felt the vibration surge, a sickening echo of impending doom. The creature's voice cut through the chaos. "Greed, fear, regret, these are your truths. They will consume you." Before Jonathan could respond, the earth trembled violently, splitting beneath their feet as new fissures ripped through the ground. The light flickered, teetering on the edge, shadows licking up around them like flames. Cracks spread like a spider's web, whispering a song of destruction. With each confession, the bond between them strengthened, a shimmering defense against the relentless darkness. But would it be enough? The eye seemed to leer, mocking their struggles. "You think you can wage war against your own demons? You are fools." Jonathan felt a burning desire ignite within him. This battle was not just for them, my damnation, it stood for every unspoken burden each had ever carried. "We can face the truth," he bellowed. The crowd seemed to rally behind him, an energy pulsing through them like wildfire. But then the earth groaned again, an ominous sound that sent waves of panic rippling through their ranks. The shadows writhed and twisted, pulling back momentarily, but the eye flared with an insatiable hunger. "Time is not on your side," the creature roared, its shadowy form straining against the light. "Embrace your regrets, or suffer the consequences of denial." Tension crackled thick in the air, the townsfolk teetering on a precipice. Jonathan struggled against his mind's manifestations of despair. "What if it's true?" a voice whispered inside him. "What if you only make it worse?" At that moment, a dazzling ray fractured through the darkness. In its brightness, an image emerged, flashes of past mistakes, each laden with pain and regret, but also glistening with lessons learned. "We walk through fire," Jonathan shouted, a new conviction coursing through him. "We can rise from the ashes." As they joined together, voices growing louder, the shadows around them began to shake, quivering as the light threatened to drown them in its brilliance. But in the distance, the fissures deepened. That eye remained fixed on them, hungry for their descent into chaos. The vibrations escalated, threatening to crush them, turning every confession into a weapon of hope. But who could possibly emerge unscathed from such a chasm of darkness? With the townsfolk gathered, fear clawing at their insides, they felt the ground quaking beneath their weary feet. Why should they trust? Were they truly prepared to confront the dread still lurking within them? "Stand firm," Jonathan rallied, heart racing. The light flared again, but would it be enough to hold back the shadows creeping closer? The question hung heavy in the air, draped over them like the creeping fog, leaving them poised at the edge of an all-consuming abyss. As Jonathan gazed into the depths of the eye, it taunted. Let us see if you can survive the truth you've buried. The shadows twisted angrily, but the townspeople stood resolute, hands locked tighter than ever. Mrs. Hargrove felt an electric surge of determination course through her veins. This was the moment. We will face you, she declared. Our truth is our strength. A collective shout rose from the group, echoing through the dark woodlands like a rallying cry. Together, echoed every voice, rising defiantly against the darkness that sought to consume them whole. The creature hesitated, its form flickering uncertainly, shadows battling against the unity of their light. For the first time, doubt crossed its featureless visage, chaos swirling in a thick fog of confusion. The eye narrowed, rage bubbling at the edges but faltering against the townsfolk's growing confidence. The earth shook violently, cracks splintering wider, as if the very foundations of despair were buckling under the weight of their resolve. You think mere words can change your fate? It roared, voice booming like thunder. You will still drown in your regrets. No! Jonathan shouted back, his heart pounding like a drum. We are not defined by our past. Our failures are lessons, not chains. That declaration reverberated through the crowd, strengthening their bonds. Then, from the depths of that darkness, a memory surged back into their collective consciousness, happy moments shared, laughter ringing like a bell, the fleeting joys they had locked away. Feel that! Mrs. Hargrove exclaimed, her voice slicing through the chaotic murmurs. Those are the truths we cherish. They are what we fight for. The light around them brightened, sparking like fireworks in the clutches of night. As their voices poured forth, they began to share their stories, heartbreaking confessions combined with glimmers of hope. I'm sorry I left, one woman shouted, tears streaming. I should have fought harder. I regret not pursuing my dreams. Another cried defiantly, words tumbling forth like a waterfall, washing away fear. The cacophony of confessions became a tidal wave that pushed back against the encroaching shadows. The darkness surged, but it felt less like a creature now and more like a thick blanket being pushed back beneath a powerful light. You do not understand your place. The creature seethed, its form whipping erratically as the light pressed forward relentlessly. You are nothing without your fears. No! A unified roar rang out. We are everything with our courage. The shadows thrashed. The ground beneath buckled and swayed. The eye narrowed, its depth revealing the turmoil within. I will consume you all! It hissed, but the flickering flames of bravery danced even higher, almost challenging the darkness to try. Together! Someone started, and soon everyone was chanting, together! 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 With that chant, a cyclone of brilliance erupted at their joined hands, sending a wave of energy spiraling toward the creature. The shadows shrieked like 1,000 wailing banshees, retreating in sheer terror as the light erupted with a force that shook the very foundations of the earth. With an almighty shriek, the creature began to dissolve into the ground, consumed by its own darkness, shriveling before their eyes. The fissure beneath them began to close, swallowed by the light still pulsing and thrumming in their hands. Don't look away! Hold fast! Jonathan cried as the light enveloped them, filling every shadowed corner. And in that moment of unity, their fears, their regrets, and their truths, there was a spark of hope. The ground quieted, the air still as the townsfolk stood, connected not just by their hands but now bound by the truth they all faced together. No longer were they just individuals carrying their burdens. They were a community, stronger than any darkness could ever comprehend. Breathless, Mrs. Hargrove turned to the group, wet trails of tears glistening under the moonlight. We've faced the darkness and survived, she whispered, awe and relief washing over her. Together. Jonathan smiled, the warmth of camaraderie settling in gratitude in his chest. No more secrets. We are free, he proclaimed softly. As dawn broke, casting golden rays across Millstone, shadows retreated, and a new day began. The townsfolk, hearts lighter and spirits brighter, turned together, embracing the promise of a new beginning. Their unity had etched a truth far more profound than fear, a truth woven with love, resilience, and hope. But in the periphery, a dark whisper lingered like smoke escaping the fire, a reminder that battles may fade, but the courage to face the next day would always be waiting. As the sun climbed higher, Mrs. Hargrove took a deep breath of fresh morning air, her heart full. This was just the beginning. So, don't wait. You need to subscribe now to catch the next thrilling story as we dive into more adventures together. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us keep sharing our journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What did you think of this ending? Your voices matter. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how you can face your own darkness, because this is the moment to show your support.